But what caught my eye even more, and the first topic of discussion I want to have, is top navigation bars. And all of their subsites do this. The two that do it the most noticeably and the best, at least among the ones I've looked at, was the one for Tekken and the one for Dragon Ball, where there's like that black bar at the top that says Bandai Namco, and then there's like the subsite menu, and it like goes away depending if you scroll down or up. It was one of the things I talked about on the Assassin's Creed Shadows website, which overall is a website that I like quite a lot. One comment I had about the site was that when you scroll down, when their black bar goes away, it appears to actually shift the page content, and that made the like scroll feel a little bit off to me. So earlier today, I decided to code my own little thing that I put into a CodePen, where it starts with the main site nav content kind of as the top bar, and in a slightly different shade of gray, there's the subsite nav content. And when you scroll down, the top bar goes away, and when you scroll up, the top bar comes back. One comment that I had just kind of as a suggestion for this kind of element on this website was to make the threshold more than 1 pixel. Because like if you like scroll down and then you scroll up literally 1 pixel, it comes back, and you scroll down literally 1 pixel, it goes away. And it appears these sites largely do the same thing too, where 1 pixel it comes back, 1 pixel it goes away. This is highly opinionated, so it's far from being any kind of an established standard or anything like that. I'm of the opinion it feels better when it's more than 1 pixel. So I wanted to come up with a way, kind of my own, to make it that way. So I made a script that I even like directly comment was largely based off of the MDN's own documentation on setting up an add event listener for scroll. I used that as a template to build my own script that does a bunch of stuff, all inside of this function here. Basically, this does two things. I came up with a way to detect when you're scrolling down. As you might be able to see in the console logs being put out, detect down, detect down, detect down, but then detect up when you're going up. But I didn't want it to just be by 1 pixel. So the way I decided to go about doing this was to set a threshold. So I have a variable at the top called threshold, and that's the amount of pixels you have to go either up or down for it to count as detecting as an up scroll or a down scroll. So in this case, I have it set to 20. So if you were to scroll up 19 pixels, that wouldn't count as detecting as an up scroll quite yet. That wouldn't be quite enough. But if you scroll up one more pixel, then it would. So you would even be able to like pause, where like I'm going up a little bit, and you see the detect up didn't happen until it hit 20. And same here, I went down by 15, but it's gonna take a little bit more. To me, that feels a little bit nicer. That's highly opinionated, but I like that more. And the other reason I suggested this was that on some devices, like if you like, especially mobile devices, where if you like scroll down all the way to the bottom, there can be a little bit of snapback, and this kind of an effect can help prevent that kind of thing too, in cases where that might be detected as scrolling. I kind of arbitrarily set 20 pixels here. You could set this to anything you want. Like if I change this to 100, that's going to work exactly the same. Where now I'm going to need to get to 100 for it to count. And same for scrolling up. And there's a few opinions that went into this that I did want to go over and explain why exactly I have those opinions. First, in the Assassin's Creed website anyway, it shifts the page content. And there could be benefits to this, because you could have a web page designed in such a way where if it doesn't shift the page content, then it'll actually cover up the page content. So there could be advantages and there could be reasons why you might want to have it do this. In my opinion, the negatives outweigh the benefits, and web pages that have these kind of elements should be designed in such a way for top content not to be covered. And that's my first opinion. Don't make the top bar coming in and out actively shift page content. And the way I chose to go about that in SCSS, I used root to kind of create essentially a variable in CSS to have a height and offset amount of 50 pixels. And that's how tall each of these bars are. And with this, I can also do some math for setting the offset values. Like down here, I set the upper bar when it's not active to be the negative value of 50. So if you multiply if you use calc in CSS and multiply it by -1, that's how you get the negative value of the like positive value you might have. And I'm using that to, so like right now it's in an active state, so the top is going to be 0. And I'm using that to make the top exactly the negative value of whatever I have set here. And I use this again a little bit later. Yeah, again, like when determining the height, and also when determining the like the top value of when main nav has the shifted down class. That's where I have the top set to that 50 pixels. And I also have another element in the HTML where essentially I added like a padding section. And in this case, I decided to make it twice as big as that, so that when you're at the top and both of them are there, it's going to account for the height of both of them. That's my opinionated way of how I went about this, with the assumption that the upper top bar and the navigation bar are exactly the same height, and simply multiplying the preset value by 2 is going to be a solution to coming up with the right amount of padding. But basically, I did that because these are position fixed and are thus outside the main flow of the HTML content. And this adds enough padding on top that the H tag up there when the content actually starts is visible. Because if I get rid of this, then as you can see, everything gets shifted up and gets hidden. And this is what I mean, in my opinion, too. But also be careful about it covering up content at the top of the page when it appears. This is where it gets into opinion territory. Do you make it shift content down to avoid this from happening, or do you design your page's top content around the assumption that this will happen? My opinion is that the latter is better. And this is kind of my method of accounting for that, where if there's going to be content that you know is a certain height, you can add padding that's based off of the height that's going to be. I guess in a slightly less ideal situation, you could just hard code a value. In this case, I derived it off of a value that is also being used to establish the height and sizes of the elements that it's essentially offsetting with its padding. And I feel that that's the better approach. You could probably go even further if you get some JavaScript involved to detect the heights, which is probably what they're doing here on the TechIn site, because these do not look the same height to me. I think that the height of the upper bar is a little bit larger than the height of the smaller one. And same for the Assassin's Creed one, where the height of the main navigation of like the subsite is obviously larger than the parent site navigation. So a more thorough approach of doing this may be to detect with JavaScript the height of each one and use those to account for the values of what these things should be, of what like the padding should be, if you're going to go this approach. That's at least my opinionated opinion on that topic. I was just kind of interested to dig a little bit deeper and code a little bit deeper into this particular thing. That at least this would be some kind of a starting point to base something like what this site is doing off of.